Okay, here's a hot take. I think the National League MVP race is over.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan, but if you just want to be informal with me, feel free to call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hey, let's go over what we're going to talk about today. For segments 2 and 3, Chuck Freimund of Locked On Brewers is going to be joining the show. I've been wanting to have him on for a couple of days now because the Brewers are the big-time pennant contender that are kind of flying under the radar right now. You know, they aren't as sexy as the Dodgers. They're not as flamboyant as the Phillies, and they aren't as star-studded as the Yankees, and they aren't as hated as the Astros. But there's an element of the Milwaukee Brewers that I think, you know, we've been seeing National League teams that we're not expecting over the last bunch of years, say for the COVID year when the Dodgers won. The National League pennant has always been somewhat unexpected. And the Brewers may fall into that category, but whether or not they should be unexpected is a completely different bag of bananas. And we're going to talk about that. And before we get going, also I want to talk about the trivia question. And I asked a question since we have the universal DH, and I'm not very happy about that. The last home run hit in the World Series by a pitcher was hit by Joe Blanton. The question I had was, who served up the last home run hit by a pitcher in the World Series? And Stephen B. Knox, who's at the Fort of Knox on Twitter, says Joe Blanton. He's a big Phillies fan, by the way, Stephen B. Knox. If Joe Blanton, I was there the moment I realized the sports gods were finally on our side. He says Edwin Jackson. And it was indeed Edwin Jackson who led up the last home run hit by a pitcher in the World Series. Edwin Jackson has one of my absolute favorite careers in the history of baseball. He played for, I believe, was it 17 teams? I think it was 17 teams he played for. And he bounced around a lot. He's not as old as you'd think he is. He played for the Rays, the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Nationals, the Tigers, the White Sox, the Diamondbacks, Atlanta, St. Louis, Oakland, San Diego, Baltimore, the Marlins, and the Blue Jays. And he did that over a 17-year career. So he averaged a team a year. And he is still only 41 years old. He's only 41 years old, was born on a military base in Germany, and did in that time, he checked everything off you'd want to have in your bucket list if you were a Major League Baseball player. He became a millionaire, played for many different teams alongside many different Hall of Famers, made the All-Star team. He threw a no-hitter, and he won a World Series ring. So viva Edwin Jackson. So he has a World Series ring, but the biggest stars in baseball don't. Bryce Harper doesn't, Aaron Judge doesn't, and Shohei Ohtani does not. But all three of them are going to be playing in the postseason this year. He's clinched a postseason spot, and today the Dodgers clinched at least a postseason spot. And Shohei Ohtani had, just a day that's borderline incomprehensible. Remember, he went into today one stolen base shy and 2 home runs shy of being the first ever 50-50 player in the history of baseball. Now, he got 50 stolen bases out of the way early. He led off the game with a double, and he stole third base for stolen base number 50. And he got a couple more hits, and then he hit he hit a home run to right field for 49, which not only got him at 49 home runs, but tied him for the all-time Dodgers single season mark, which Sean Green held. That's right. There's never been a 50 home run hitter in Dodger history, not in Brooklyn and not in Los Angeles. And then later, and I got to scroll down here. I can't remember which. So the first home run he hit was off of Soriano. Then he had an opposite field 2-out, 2-run home run to make it 50 home runs and make it official. Now later he hit a third home run off of a utility infielder who was pitching or an infielder who was pitching. I am so glad he did not hit home run number 50 off of a position player. I'm really done with position players pitching. I really am. I mean, it used to be a fun thing that happened maybe once or twice a year. The fact that it is a strategy now to have a pitch and position player pitch, I just think sucks. Just have one of your other pitchers. Baumann, you stunk. You threw 29 pitches. Pitch the ninth. Have him go out there. Because one of Shohei's 51 home runs is off of off of an infielder. And you should be able to I've been saying this a lot. You should be able to wave the white flag. But also, I mean, the final score was 20-4. 6 of the runs came in the ninth off of position players pitching. I'm done with it. I'm absolutely done with it. But here we go. In the end, Shohei went 6 for 6 with the 3 home runs, 10 runs batted in, 2 stolen bases, a partridge in a pear tree, as Mr. Chris Martinez said. And with that, I mean, first of all due respect to some of the fine players, including Francisco Lindor, who are out there. The National League MVP race is over. I'm sorry. I'm sorry he didn't play the field this year. I think you have to have an extraordinary year to be a DH and win the MVP. Hey, guess who did? Let's take a look at his stats right now, shall we? In 599 at-bats, he has 176 hits. So I guess 200 hits is the next thing on. Can he get 24 hits in the last week? You know what? At this pace, sure. Do you like home runs? He had 51. Do you like runs batted in? He has 120. Do you like stolen bases? He has 51. Do you like OPS? His OPS right now is at 1.005. And there you go. I don't know what his WAR is right now. I'm assuming it's good. And with this is the best part about today, in my opinion, is not necessarily. I mean, obviously the statistic stuff is incredible. The fact that he followed through on everything is amazing. But Major League Baseball should be absolutely thrilled. Do you know why? I'll tell you why. Because with this game, the Dodgers also posted that they will play in the postseason. I meant to say that. They clinched a postseason spot. And now we know Shohei Ohtani, for the first time in his career, will be playing in the postseason. And that is no small thing. We've seen his teammate, Mike Trout, have his career fade away with a grand total of 3 postseason games in his entire career. Shohei Ohtani, up until this point, is tied with me in postseason appearances. Not for any fault of his own, but he was playing for a joke organization with the Angels. And so now he's playing with a real organization, the Dodgers. And the Dodgers are certainly stacked with stars, but they have better hope that some combination of starting pitchers can have them go deep. But the idea of Shohei Ohtani having the Shohei Ohtani game in the postseason is something we can all, salivate for. Unless, of course, you're a fan of a different team in the National League. And one such team might very well be the Milwaukee Brewers. When we come back, Chuck Freimund of Locked On Brewers is going to join the show and talk about why they are the team flying under the radar. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Shohei Ohtani rookie just isn't in the cards. Look, I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. But thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of the retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed into your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent, with a full grade rationale provided an explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB, code LockedOnMLB for 10% off your first purchase. All right, as promised, we're going to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers. Of course, we have to talk about a big market team in segment one because of Shohei Ohtani. But as I think even Chuck Freimund of Locked On Brewers would agree, Shohei Ohtani had a pretty good night. And do you know what I feel badly for? Somewhere, someone out there did not put Shohei Ohtani in their fantasy baseball lineup today. And they missed out on what turned out to be a pretty decent night. But let's talk. Well, I'm sorry, let me cut you off there.
We have been talking about this on the show and in the city of Milwaukee and the state of Wisconsin. All we hear is Shohei, and great Shohei, but people forget about us here in the flyover state that we got the third best team in the National League. And every time I pick up my alert from MLB or ESPN, it is Shohei and the Dodgers and this and the Yankees. How about the Milwaukee Brewers and the way they're flying, Sully?
Well, hey, that's why I want to bring you on. Because, first of all, I don't want to be accused of overlooking a team like Milwaukee. And last night, let's just talk about I was going to do a show last night, but I had to have a dental issue, and I actually had Novocaine in my face, so I couldn't talk about it, but we could talk about it now. I actually talked about it a little bit on Locked On A's this morning. The A's fans are saying you're welcome to Milwaukee Brewers fans for taking the pressure off of last night, but no pressure needed because the Brewers going into the game already knew they had clinched because Chicago lost to Oakland earlier that afternoon. But the Brewers gave their fans quite a thrill with a fantastic walk-off 2-1 victory over no small team, the Philadelphia Phillies. And it was really, there were a lot of heroes for last night, but it was Jackson Chourío's triple in the ninth inning that set up the victory. This is, and I believe it was Jake Bauers who got the walk-off hit, if I'm not mistaken. You'll have to forgive me. I was filled with Novocaine. But this is not the sexiest team, not the most star-studded team, but going into the postseason, I do think the two teams that are built right now in their current state for a long run, I would say it would be San Diego and even more so Milwaukee. Tell us your thoughts about the first team to clinch a division and what I think is one of the deepest teams in baseball.
Yeah, there's no star power on this team, but they have a lot of good players and they do a lot of things right. And they play the game the right way and they don't make many mistakes. The margin of error is so small for this team. So you look at the Milwaukee Brewers and you say, well, what do they do well? Well, the bullpen is good. There's no stars in that starting rotation, but somehow they always get a lot of quality starts off this team. They produce runs. They don't have any big bat in the lineup, but they still score some runs. And the bottom line is they win ball games. They just continue to win. And now a month from now, we could be saying, well, even less than that, we could be saying, well, here it is. We were teased again by the Milwaukee Brewers. And I get it. Brewer fans still have been pessimistic all season because we've been down this road in recent years, only to have our hearts broken in a wild card round. Hopefully this year is different. It looks different, but can this magic, as I've always said, can this magic carry over to October?
Well, I'll tell you a team that is coming to mind, and it's a team that had a stretch of a lot of frustration. And that team is Atlanta. Atlanta went through a stretch where they would make the playoffs a bunch, but not get out of the division series, or maybe get LCS once in a while.
Mhm.
But, there was always kind of like, yeah, but they're not going to go as far, save for the middle of the 90s when they went to a bunch of World Series.
Yeah.
And the team, it's funny that the team that won the World Series, the team that beat a very good Brewers team in 2021, reminds me a little of this squad. Now, that squad ridiculously lost their entire starting outfield and had to cut and paste with the Petersons and the Rosarios and the Solers, and all three of those players came up huge in the postseason. But one of the things I like about this team, and that does remind me, that Atlanta team, when people forget, had a extraordinarily deep bullpen. And they may not have had the sexiest starting rotation, but if you got a lead to that pen, they were not going to cough it up.
Yeah,
I think this Brewers team has a good, this Brewers team has a good bullpen. They have a good rotation, and they have a good lineup. I don't think they have a massive hole, which I think should go a long way when you look at some of the big contending teams in the National Leagues who do have some gaping holes.
and this team needs to do all those phases correctly to win a playoff series. And they steal the bases, and they run the bases very well, and they play in defense. Defensively, they're one of the best defensive teams in baseball. If you want to see a team in terms of fundamentals who play smart baseball and don't beat themselves, you see Milwaukee Brewers. This version of the Milwaukee Brewers is that team right there. Now, whether it's good enough to overcome Philadelphia and Los Angeles? They just beat Philadelphia 2-3 at home after getting swept by them earlier this year. The thing about this Brewers team is, Sully, they have never lost more than 3 games in a row all season. They're the only team in baseball like that. You talk about a model of consistency and a team that bounces back. Okay. That's the Milwaukee Brewers. Haven't lost more than 3 in a row all year, and just a real consistent effort. And every time we think that this team is going to go south, they come back and win 2 or 3 or 4 games and get on a little run. But they don't sustain. They don't go into slumps. They have one really bad month, or not totally bad. It wasn't great. It was July. July was probably the worst month.
Right. But I've made this point on the show too, that one of the things that has been very impressive about this Brewers team is they haven't gotten too high. They haven't gotten too low. Mm-hmm. They haven't had they haven't had that 11-game run, but they also have not had a huge slide. And I do think that you've seen the Phillies went on a really bad stretch. And LA, look at LA is going to win 90-something games. They're going to win the division. They'll probably get a bye. But their starting pitching right now is really questionable. And there are questionable parts to that Philadelphia team as well. And one of the reasons that I think that this Brewers team is impressive, not just the fact that they haven't had a long losing streak, not just the fact they've been really consistent, but because, I'll make a weird analogy, there is an element to it that is reminiscent of the Tory Yankees for this reason, not for the star power, but when you looked at the Tory Yankee years, they didn't have the best player at any position anywhere in that lineup, but they had a lot of people that you can pass the baton to. They had a lot of people you can rely on. Contreras, Hoskins, obviously Adames, obviously Chirino, but you have a bunch of guys that if one person doesn't get it, Bowers will get the hit. If Bowers doesn't get the hit, or Joey Ortiz had a big game the other day. That it's not, you're not leaning on players like the Yankees are leaning on Soto and Judge. And if Soto and Judge have a bad series, it's going to be over and out. The Dodgers are relying on a cut and paste starting rotation. If they fall apart like they did last year to Arizona, they're going to be over and out. And we have seen moments when Bryce Harper has had slumps and had injuries. And if they don't have him in that lineup hitting the way he does, it's over and out. But the Brewers don't have that one Jenga piece that if they have a bad series, it'll wipe the team out. And I think in a short series, I think that's going to go in their favor.
It is, but it could also be a quick elimination. Like last year was a 27-hour postseason for them. They won the division title. And they were out in 27 hours, losing to Arizona. Put a big star in the middle of this lineup. Put Bryce Harper on the Milwaukee Brewers. People are talking about the Brewers winning the World Series.
Right.
You put Aaron Judge on the Brewers. It's the Brewers by the best team. The one thing is, Adames has been slumping as of late, but he's had a great year. He's got 32 home runs. Mm-hmm. Contreras has been very good. Hoskins hit a game-tying home run the other night. But I just think that this team has got the it factor. And when I say that, it's just that, man, you look at the lineup. If you look at their lineup and you look at the Philadelphia lineup, you'll say, okay, this team and this day, who's going to win? Well, you got Philadelphia. They got all their stars and Trey Turner and all that. You say, Philadelphia's probably going to win the game. And next thing you know, Milwaukee's up 6-1 on these guys and rolling and getting another win. So I don't know. It busts the bad market, small market, big market thing as far as that you can't win in a small market. But the Brewers have to do so many things right. Get a great farm system. When they make a trade like for Savale or Montes, it's got to hit. When they sign a big time free agent, it's got to work out. All those things they've got to be right on and everything. They can't make any mistakes.
Well, we come back. I'm going to talk about that mistake-free ball and why I think Milwaukee, at least this model, is a pretty good model for that. You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different from you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. All right. And by the way, thanks for making Locked On MLB your first listen. Make your second listen Locked On Brewers. With our buddy Chuck Freimund there, you bring in the news for the Brewers all year long. And for your third listen, go to Locked On A's. I'm doing double duty this season. I'm doing Locked On MLB and Locked On A's. That's right, 10 episodes a week with your pal Sully. But I'm only doing it till the end of the regular season. And I'm going to be doing a special episode next week from the Oakland Coliseum on their final game in Oakland. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe the Players Association will reject Sacramento.
Who knows?
But we don't know. I don't know, and neither do you.
I said this about the Oakland A's, Sully, the other day when people say, well, the Cubs are going to roll over the A's. The A's are the best bad team in baseball. When I say that, you look at their record. But, man, they got some good players on that team. They just fight, too.
Well,
they're not terrible by any means.
Well, if you take out they had a horrible May and a horrible June.
Mm-hmm.
They were 500 on May 4th. Then they had a horrible rest of the May and an unwatchable June. And since then, they've been 7 games above 500. Yeah. They really only have had 2 bad months. And if they were 500 or even a game or 2 under 500, they would be on the periphery of the wild card hunt. There's a lot of talent on that team.
Yeah, they played exciting. There's people say, "Oh, look at the Oakland." No, the Oakland A's, man. They're again. You take that record out. You look at them and they say, "Well, I feel like, man, them and Colorado are 2 teams you don't want to face in a pennant race."
Well, and also remember that the A's are going to have a 15-20 game improvement from last year because they're not going to lose 100 games this year, and they may not lose 90. And they're not going to finish in last place. The Angels are going to finish in last place.
Yeah.
So what does that say about the Angels? Can't play above a team whose management literally is trying to have them lose. But the Brewers management wants them to win. And I'll tell you, another smaller market team that did win it all was Kansas City about 9 years ago. And one of the things they did, and they credit, in one way, kind of created the blueprint for a smaller market team to take advantage of that window of opportunity. Mm-hmm. They had a strong bullpen. they had very good players on that team, but they had a lot of speed on that team. They kept people on the back of their heels, but they also didn't make mental errors. They didn't give the game back. They didn't open up the door. And that, to me, their speed, when you look at, I know you know this, when you look at the fact that, Turang is a stolen base guy, Adames is a stolen base guy, Churrillo has 20 stolen bases, Perkins has a bunch of stolen bases, Bowers has a bunch of stolen bases, Garrett Mitchell has a bunch of stolen bases. There are a bunch of guys who are fast on this team and could get people on their heels, and they play smart defensive baseball. And I think those two, and the fact that their pitching staff, I've always been a Peralta fan. I've always liked him. And I like the fact that, Ray has had a tough time. So they gave him, he got a save the other day, one of those long 3-inning saves.
Yeah.
They're going to put a decent pitcher on the mound every time. They're going to have a good bullpen. Just don't play dumb ball and hand anything back. And I think the Brewers have a decent chance.
Yeah. The Brewers have pulled off many double steals this year. When teams try to double steal against them, seems like the Brewers have always got that ace in the hole. They're always like one step. Pat Murphy I feel like he's always like one step ahead of things. Yeah. And, he's out. Sure, he's made a couple of mistakes.
Who has? Joe Torre made mistakes. Earl Weaver made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes.
They all do. You're right. But I think Murphy has done such a great job. And, the thing is when you have a high baseball IQ and you play the game smartly, that can overcome a lot of shortcomings. You might not be the best team, but if you play smart in sports, you could do a lot of things to make up for maybe the talent level or that you're not as athletically gifted. Playing smart makes up for a lot of things. And I think that's what this Brewer team does.
And I'll tell you another thing is that the Brewers have never had manager of the year. And I think they're going to this year.
Well, I think Counsell should have probably won it 4 times.
That's true. That is true. But he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't.
He should have won. At least one time. Yeah. You're not manager of the year. Considering, Sully, the history of this franchise, between 1970 and 2017, they had 2 division championships. That's pathetic. He leads them to a division championship in 2018 and does not get manager of the year and goes to the NLCS. Weird. Yeah. But so, yeah, and I think Murphy, I'd like to find out if he's not unanimous manager of the year, who better? He's got to be unanimous, don't you think?
I bet Schilt's going to get a few votes in San Diego. I bet they're going to get some votes in for the Mets, but I think that Murphy has to win it.
Well, considering that Murphy didn't have Devin Williams for most of the season until August. Right. You don't have a legit number one. You talk about Freddie Peralta, but he's not an ace. He's not a legitimate number one starter. They lost Christian Yelich. All right. And he had to sit out multiple times during the season, and he was having a pretty good year. They've overcome injuries. They have like 16 different guys save a game. Trevor McGill stepped up in a closer's role. They've had so many guys do so many different things. Garrett Mitchell is batting cleanup of this team. Go around baseball and ask anybody if they ever heard of Garrett Mitchell. Clean up on a third best team in the National League. The Brewers, and then when he's not there against right-handers, Gary Sanchez is the cleanup hitter against lefties. Gary Sanchez, are you kidding me? So they don't even have a legitimate cleanup hitter.
Yeah, but this could be Eddie Rosario and Jorge Soler all over again.
Yeah.
Which National League team are you most afraid of?
All of them. I'm telling you, all of them, Sully, because they're all going to be tough. What happened against Arizona last year could happen again this year. Honestly, they're all. I think, obviously, you fear the Dodgers and Phillies. Okay, they're the 2 best teams. Looks like they're going to get the top 2 seeds. The Brewers, by losing on Thursday night and with LA winning, LA's got a 3-game lead with the tiebreaker. So realistically, a 4-game. So the second seed is fading away. But all those teams, the Mets, San Diego, you don't want to face.
No.
San Diego's tough. Atlanta, anybody in that wild card hunt, they're all tough. Arizona, who was in town this weekend, they're all tough.
Yeah. But I got news for you. Milwaukee's tough too. And who's also tough, who's coughing away there, is Chuck Freimund. Which brings us to No. No, you're very good with the cough button. All right, let's throw the trivia question. It's going to be Brewers oriented here. Don't say it if you don't know it. If you do know it, don't say it.
Okay.
We all know Robin Yount is the all-time hits leader in the history of the Milwaukee Brewers, but who is the all-time wins leader? What pitcher has the most? Don't say it. It's a trivia question. Put your answer down here in the YouTube comment section or at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, whatever it's called now, or on Instagram, or at my Twitter account, which is Sully Baseball or Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Chuck Freimund, where can people listen to your terrific show?
Oh, they can get us on wherever you download your podcast, Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast, your audio podcast, that's where we are. Number one Brewers podcast on the internet because of the great Brewers fans. And of course, our growing YouTube page, search Locked On Brewers in YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, hit the likes. All the content, as you know, Sully, all free, all free. And as you said earlier in the show, make your first listen to Locked On MLB. For Brewer fans, make your first listen Locked On Brewers, your second listen Locked On MLB. At least that's what the boss has told me.
and then switch over to Locked On A's, where we can say goodbye to the Oakland A's.
Yes.
And there are many championships won, whether it is in Philadelphia or in Oakland. And I hope they win a championship in Sacramento because that would only be fair. Talking to Chuck Freimund about the underappreciated Milwaukee Brewers, who could maybe give Milwaukee their first World Series title since the Braves did in 57. This has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Brewers crossover. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.